Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. For decades, the Caspian Sea was treated in Moscow as a quiet backroom of Russian power, a space where energy flowed outward, money flowed inward, and few outsiders could interfere. That assumption no longer holds. In the past year, a series of Ukrainian strikes, pressure campaigns, and strategic shifts have quietly reached far beyond the front lines, disrupting energy routes that feed the Russian state. This is the story of how the Caspian Sea stopped being a Russian lake, and how Ukraine targeted what many analysts now describe as Vladimir Putin's energy ATM. To understand why the Caspian matters, we need to step back from the battlefield and look at geography. The Caspian Sea is the world's largest enclosed body of water, bordered by Russia, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Iran, and Turkmenistan. It is not just a sea, it is an energy basin. Beneath and around it lie some of the largest oil and gas reserves on the planet. For Russia, the Caspian has long been a strategic rear area, far from NATO borders, shielded from Western navies, and central to pipelines that move oil to global markets. For years, Russian planners assumed this region was safe. Ukraine, landlocked from the Caspian and fighting for survival, was not expected to influence it in any meaningful way. But modern warfare no longer respects neat maps. What Ukraine has demonstrated is that energy systems are interconnected, fragile, and politically exposed, even hundreds or thousands of kilometers from the front. Russia's economy remains deeply dependent on energy exports. Despite sanctions, oil and gas still fund a large portion of the federal budget. These revenues pay for weapons, salaries, social stability, and political loyalty. When Western sanctions hit in 2022, Moscow responded by rerouting exports, offering discounts, and relying more heavily on non-Western markets. The Caspian Sea became even more important as an alternative corridor, a way to move oil through Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, bypassing European pressure. One key route is the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, or CPC. This pipeline carries oil from Kazakhstan's giant Tengiz field to the Russian Black Sea port of Novorossiysk. While much of the oil is Kazakh, the infrastructure runs through Russia, and Moscow benefits financially and strategically. Another critical node is Russia's network of refineries, pumping stations, and ports linked to Caspian production. Ukraine could not directly seize these facilities. Instead, it pursued a different strategy: make Russian energy less reliable, more expensive, and politically risky. Over time, this approach began to pay off. Ukrainian long-range drones and sabotage operations have increasingly targeted Russia's energy infrastructure. Refineries, fuel depots, and pumping stations far from Ukraine's borders have been hit. Each individual strike may seem limited, but together they send a powerful signal. No part of Russia's energy system is untouchable. Some of these strikes affected facilities connected, directly or indirectly, to Caspian flows. Temporary shutdowns at refineries disrupted export schedules. Insurance costs for shipping rose. Repairs required imported equipment that sanctions had made harder to obtain. Even brief interruptions forced Russian authorities to divert resources from the front to protect infrastructure. Equally important was the psychological effect. Investors, traders, and partner states began to reassess risk. Kazakhstan, for example, found itself repeatedly caught in the middle. Although officially neutral, its oil exports depend on pipelines running through Russia. Each disruption raised uncomfortable questions in Astana about over-reliance on Russian routes. Azerbaijan, meanwhile, strengthened its role as an alternative energy hub. The Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, which bypasses Russia entirely, gained new strategic importance. European policymakers, seeking non-Russian energy, looked more seriously at Caspian gas and oil that could reach them without crossing Russian territory. Ukraine did not create these dynamics alone, but its actions accelerated them. By demonstrating that Russian infrastructure could be hit deep inside the country, Kiev altered calculations across the region. The phrase Russian lake was never an official term, but it reflected a mindset. For years, Russia acted as the dominant military and political power in the Caspian. Its navy was the strongest. Its diplomacy shaped legal agreements governing the sea. Its energy companies enjoyed privileged access. That dominance is now being quietly challenged, not by a Caspian navy battle, but by economic and technological pressure. One example is the strain on Russia's refining capacity. Several major refineries were forced to halt operations temporarily after drone strikes. While Russia can repair damage, repeated interruptions reduce output and exports. When less fuel is available, prices rise, domestic shortages appear, and the state loses revenue. Another example is logistics. Oil is not just pumped. It must be stored, transported, insured, and sold. When ports face threats, shipping companies demand higher premiums. When pipelines are unreliable, buyers seek alternatives. Over time, these frictions add up. Western sanctions magnify the effect. Even when Russia finds buyers in Asia, it often sells at a discount. Each disruption deepens that discount. In effect, Ukraine's strategy does not need to stop Russian exports entirely. It only needs to make them less profitable and less predictable. For the Kremlin, this is a serious problem. The Russian political system relies on a steady flow of money to maintain stability. Regional elites expect funding. Soldiers expect pay. Pensioners expect benefits. When energy revenues dip, difficult choices follow. It is important to be precise here. Ukraine has not destroyed Russia's Caspian energy system. The pipelines still run. The oil still flows, but the aura of invulnerability is gone. What was once assumed to be a safe rear area is now part of the broader war environment. This shift also has military implications. Russia must allocate air defenses, security forces, and intelligence assets to protect infrastructure far from the front. Every system guarding a refinery is one less system available elsewhere. In a long war, these trade-offs matter. The Caspian states are watching closely. Kazakhstan has accelerated discussions about diversifying export routes, including increased shipments across the Caspian to Azerbaijan. Turkmenistan has renewed talks about gas exports westward. Even Iran, under its own sanctions, sees opportunities and risks in a more contested energy landscape. For Europe, the lesson is sobering but clear. Energy security is inseparable from security in Ukraine. As long as the war continues, global energy markets will remain exposed to disruption. Ukraine's actions have highlighted vulnerabilities that were long ignored in peacetime planning. From Kiev's perspective, targeting energy infrastructure is not just retaliation. It is strategy. Ukraine lacks Russia's size and resources, so it seeks leverage where asymmetry favors it. Energy infrastructure is expensive, complex, and politically sensitive. Hitting it sends signals not only to Moscow, but to markets and allies. There are also limits. Ukraine must balance military necessity with international law and political support. Strikes that cause civilian harm or global price spikes could backfire. So far, Ukraine has framed its actions as legitimate self-defense against an aggressor whose war machine is fueled by energy exports. The Caspian Sea itself remains calm on the surface. Tankers still cross it. Platforms still pump. But beneath that surface, assumptions are shifting. Power is no longer uncontested. Routes are no longer guaranteed. The idea of a secure Russian energy backyard is fading. In Moscow, officials avoid public alarm. State media rarely connects refinery fires or pipeline disruptions to strategic weakness. But internal documents and budget adjustments tell a different story. Increased spending on infrastructure protection, reduced export volumes at times, and mounting repair costs all point to pressure. History shows that wars are often decided not only by battles, but by systems. Railways, factories, finances, and fuel determine how long a state can sustain conflict. Ukraine's approach reflects this understanding. Rather than seeking dramatic breakthroughs, It is applying steady pressure on the systems that keep Russia's war effort running. The Caspian Sea will not become a Ukrainian-controlled space. That was never the goal. The goal was to end the illusion that Russia could wage war without cost in its economic heartlands. On that front, Ukraine has made measurable progress. As the war continues, the contest over energy will intensify. New routes will be tested, old assumptions will be challenged, and the Caspian, once seen as distant from the conflict, will remain part of the story. What happens there matters far beyond the region. It affects global oil prices, European energy security, and the financial lifelines of the Russian state. In modern warfare, no battlefield is truly isolated. If you found this analysis useful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more war updates and global analysis.